The Battle of Narva is a fantastic success for the Swedish army, and it happened at the very beginning of the Great Northern War. Hello everyone, you are watching Brick Show channel, and today we have a new history lesson for you. At the beginning of the 18th century, the Swedish Empire was the mistress of all Northern Europe. In 1697, the emperor dies, and 14-year-old Charles XII comes to the throne of the Swedish monarchy. The teenager's rise to power was perceived by neighbors as a sign of weakness. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Denmark-Norway state, and Russia united into an alliance and declared war on Charles XII. However, Sweden quickly withdrew Denmark-Norway from the war and drove the Polish troops away from Riga. Well, what about Russia? Russia really needed access to the sea. Peter I, later known as Peter the Great, planned to capture the key city of Narva. To do this, the Russian Tsar gathered almost 40,000 soldiers. It should be noted that while the Swedish army was highly professional and well supplied, the Russian army in 1700 was formed mainly with militia soldiers. The troops were inexperienced, poorly trained, and poorly armed. Only 3 regiments in the Russian army were created according to the modern Western model. In September, the Russian army began shelling Narva. For 2 weeks, the Russian cannons bombarded the city without any success. It turned out that the cannons were of small caliber, the gunpowder was poor, and the cannonballs could not damage the city wall. And after 2 weeks, both the cannonballs and gunpowder ran out, and the shelling stopped.
Gospodar, pojte liniji надо построить укрепления, пока мы осаждаем Нарву, Карл может навтил зайти.
Knowing that the Karelian army could come to the aid of the garrison in Narva, the Russians decided to build fortifications for their positions. A ditch was dug along the entire length of the peninsula. Horns were also supplied against cavalry, the Cheval de Frise. And at the top of the ditch there was an embankment and small wooden fortifications. It must be said that the Russian Tsar tried to adopt the Western style of the army, and therefore he had many European officers in his army. One of them, a captain of a bombardment company, fled to Narva and passed on all the information about the Russian army. After this, Peter sent all Swedish officers out of the camp. The soldiers began to look at the foreigners with distrust. This will play a role later. Soon, information appeared that despite the winter, the Swedish kings sailed on ships and landed not far from the besieged city. There was a rumor that the Swedish army reached 50,000 soldiers, although in reality there were only about 10,000 of them. As Charles's army approached, Tsar Peter left the camp. There are various reasons for Peter's retreat. Perhaps he thought that he could be more useful by organizing supplies for the Russian army and that the siege would still be in place when he returned. Nevertheless, Peter left the command to Duke de Croix. and left. Unsure if Narva was holding out, Charles ordered the firing of a pre-arranged signal of 4 cannon shots. Soon, the sounds of 4 shots were heard from the besieged city. Narva was still in Swedish hands. Nobody expected the Swedes to act so quickly. On the morning of November the 30th, Russian patrols saw enemy columns. Charles realized that there were many more Russians than he thought. His 10,000 had to attack 40,000, and the big problem was the ditch with the fortifications. But the Swedish monarch also understood that it was no longer possible to retreat. The Swedes realized the critical mistake of the Russians. The troops were located in a thin line along the entire length of the fortifications for several kilometers. And if you strike concentratedly in one place, then help from other parts of the camp will take a long time to arrive. So, the key to success is to quickly cross the ditch and enter hand-to-hand combat in Russian army territory. A fascine is a rough bundle of brushwood or other material used for strengthening structures or making a path across uneven or wet terrain. Swedes decided to fill the ditch with those fascines. At the time of the battle, a strong snowstorm began. The Swedish generals proposed to postpone the battle until the next day, but the king saw that snow was flying in the face of the Russian army, and the Russian soldiers could not see anything. The snow helped the Swedes and greatly hindered the Russians. Having broken through the defenses in the center, the Swedes simply tore apart the Russian soldiers. At that time, The Swedes had the best muskets, they shot better and more accurately, but most importantly, experienced Swedish soldiers were simply unsurpassed masters in hand-to-hand combat. Realizing that the battle was lost,
Немчура нас предала! Немцы-предатели! Бей их!
the Russian soldiers began to shout that the foreign officers had betrayed them, and they started killing their foreign officers. Seeing this, Duke de Grasse surrendered to the Swedes. According to some reports, he said, "Let the devil himself command these soldiers." After that, he went towards the Swedes and surrendered to the first person he met, giving them his saber turned with the hilt forward.
Отступаем!
Бежим!
Спасайся, кто может!
Спасаемся!
Бежим!
Panic began in the Russian army. The soldiers tried to escape across the Oni Bridge, but it could not stand it and collapsed. Hold on, Jack, this door has enough room for both of us. However, the battle was not over. The Swedes defeated the militia army, but 3 regiments of the elite Russian army built barricades from carts and took up a perimeter defense. The battle against the elite units continued until the night and brought 0 success to the Swedes. As a result, Charles agreed to peace negotiations and released the Russians with weapons and flags. The total losses of the Russian army were colossal: 8,000 killed. The Swedes lost 800 people killed. After this battle, the elite Russian regiments received red socks, a symbol of the fact that they fought knee-deep in blood. This was the beginning of the birth of the great Russian army. Well, it was a story about the incredible victory of a small Swedish army over the huge Russian army. I hope you liked this story. Please like this video and subscribe. It will be appreciated. That's it for today. Farewell.